Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Launched in 2012, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Sky-Dweller came out of the blue. A full-sized 42mm annual calendar and GMT that was dedicated to travelers. It was remarkably expensive and remarkably feature dense. At the time, one of the most complex Rolex watches ever made. But it wasn't until 2017, with the arrival of the dial you see here, fully luminescent with stick indices, that the model really hit its stride. And what we have is the Oyster Perpetual Sky-Dweller 326935 in Everose red gold. The watch is 42 millimeters, but it wears more compact than you would think. 13.9 millimeters thick. It is 50.2 millimeters lug tip to lug tip, end link to end link. It's 51.4 millimeters with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now, when you pop it open and you throw it on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, you realize how it looks and wears like a Giant Datejust. It has the shape, it has the profile, it has the combination of bezel, bracelet, and dial, and it is thinner than you would expect, even sliding underneath fairly tight cuffs. I could recommend this watch for a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference or larger. My wrist at 16 centimeters circumference is not challenged or overmatched, though the watch is on the large side and it is very heavy. Part of the reason for that is that Rolex doesn't short you the rose gold. Solid end links, solid center links, thick gauge clasp and swing arm, and instead of a cheap sapphire, we get a full solid gold case back. Rolex has its own foundry, it makes its own cases, clasps, and bracelets, and it makes its own alloys. Now, introduced during the 2000s, this is Everose. It has more copper, which makes it redder, and it has more platinum, which makes it more resistant to fade. Fade is a real thing on rose, red, and pink gold. Here it will be ever rosy, and because of that extra copper, it's really ever red. Now we have a Oyster style bracelet, 3-link with polished centers, polished outer faces, satin shoulder links, a conforming end links. There's no gap between bracelet and case. We have polished outer faces and removable links fixed in place by screws. There are plenty of them. Inside the clasp, we have the Rolex snap-in, snap-out 5mm easy link, tool-free adjustment, which you can use to fine-tune the fit. You can also see that inside the clasp, we have 3 pairs of divots that have been drilled, and those allow you to use your strap tool to change the anchoring point of the bracelet in 3 different positions to fine-tune the fit. We have a thick gauge, fully polished swing arm, and then we have a spring-loaded beak and hook system that's a lift lock. It snaps shut. You can't just pull it open. You do have to lift it to unlatch it, so it gives you the security you would want in a sports watch. Solid Oyster case back, screw down twin lock crown. It's a twin lock in gold. We know because 2 dots means twin lock in gold. 100-meter water resistance. The watch has automatic winding and plenty of luminescence, so though it is rose gold, it's very much a sports watch. That's Rolex's proprietary Chroma-Lite blue lume. Now, at first glance, you might think that this is a fairly straightforward watch. It has a date and it has a second time zone. We'll just adjust these through the crown. But we screw out the crown and it winds in the first position, but in the second position it does nothing. The bezel is actually part of the movement. It's called ring command. 1 click counterclockwise. Now I can adjust the date forward and backwards. Note that the quick set works in both directions. It's an annual calendar which needs only 1 adjustment per year during the jump from February to March. So the way it indicates the time of the year is that you have 12 hours corresponding to 12 months. This little red index jumps from aperture to aperture outboard of the hours. And so red at 12 means December. This is December 5th. And you can see how I'm able to actually turn the clock back and jump back to November. And I'm able to drive both the date and the month indicator forward and backwards here. But note, the watch is still keeping time, and I'm only adjusting the date. The movement is not stopped. 1 more click counterclockwise. Now I can adjust the local hour. And that local hour can adjust the date forward, but not back. We're not in hacked seconds mode. The seconds hand is still moving. Okay, 1 more click counterclockwise. Now, hacking seconds or stop seconds is active. Everything moves in sync. The first thing you do is you set this 24-hour reference ring in the center of the dial. So there we go. It's 4 a.m. So I'm going to set that to 4 a.m. Then I make my changes. By the way, you set your minute also in this mode. Then 1 more click clockwise. I can set my local hour. And then finally, I can set my date however I like. Draw it all the way back clockwise, and once again, we're in freewheeling mode for the crown. Inside, Rolex caliber 9001. Automatic winding, bidirectional wind action. It has a rotor bearing rather than the jeweled staff of older Rolex movements. That makes this movement more shock tolerant. 40 joules, 8 beats per second. COSC chronometer certified. Rolex takes the chronometer, puts it in the case, because remember, COSC is for movements only. Rolex tests the full cased watch to 6 positions, and it tests to make sure that over 24 hours the watch runs no worse than -2 +2 seconds per 24 hours, which is bigger and better than what COSC offers. Remember, COSC is -4 +6. The movement has a full balance bridge and a free sprung balance for shock tolerance, an anti-magnetic niobium zirconium hairspring, and that hairspring is a handmade Breguet overcoil profile that will resist positionally induced or gravitationally induced timing deviation. Rolex even makes its own alloys, its own lubricants, and its own shock protection, which it calls Paraflex. So this movement is in fact all Rolex, and to top it all off, it has an almost 3-day power reserve. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.